stop reading books about health, stop listening to podcasts about health. There's no social obligation effect with a bot. I think there is a wake-up happening, a wake-up call, where people realise they're being played.
What is the infinite resource that we should be relying on?
Luck.
Welcome to the Visionary Podcast, where we discuss science, medicine, physical health, and mental well-being. So if willpower and motivation are in a way, finite resource, what is the infinite resource that we should be relying on?
Luck.
Okay. Hope. It's an amazing one.
Yeah,
Hope.
no, humans are what we should be relying on, because it's really clear, massively evident, that the gap in the model is human support. So we've been giving people the knowledge and when I say people, I'm including myself in that. You know, we are flooded with advice and flooded with recommendations and told what habits we need to fix and told not to do this and do that instead. And so we're given all the information. But when you then realise, and we're even given access to the most incredible equipment in the gyms and everything. But then when you go back to how the brain wires habits, that you have to do high frequency repetition of that behaviour for months, most people will struggle to do that on their own. And so human support is what we should be relying on, is find an accountability partner. It doesn't even have to be a professional. It could be your neighbour, it could be a friend, it could be a family member, it could be a colleague at work. It really doesn't matter what it is. It's find a buddy who also wants to aggressively go after a habit. It could be a different habit to you. Check in with each other every day, right? Have you done it? Yes or no? Right, see you again tomorrow. You know, the simplicity of that, where you've got someone showing up for you, asking you if you've done it, keeping that habit at the forefront of memory. Because often what happens is on a Monday, someone will decide to tackle a habit. Well, on a Wednesday, they've forgotten what the habit was that they've chosen.
Yep.
Because we live in a hectic pace of life with a lot of distractions. The first job of checking in with someone in the early days of tackling a habit is remembering that you're even supposed to be doing the habit.
Yeah, it keeps you on track, right?
Yeah, it's like the reminder. It's like, have you done it today? Oh, God, I forgot. No, right, try again tomorrow. Back tomorrow. Have you done it today? Oh, I forgot. Right, we'll try again tomorrow. You know, just keeping that habit at the forefront of mind. Because in the early days, as you've got your brain here, you know, the prefrontal cortex is doing the heavy lifting. You have to really force yourself to do that habit, because you have to remember to do the habit. You have to intentionally perform the habit. So it's a lot of effort in the early days, and having someone with you on that journey to keep going. And digital nudges don't work. You know, we all thought, oh, humans are too expensive. Let's create an app and send someone a tech nudge, a notification. But now, it's decades since we got Fitbits and apps. No impact, because the retention is so low, because we're now in the app fatigue era, where we have so many apps, we have so many digital notifications. There's no social obligation effect with a bot. Whereas if you were messaging me every day and I just got the little WhatsApp from you saying, hey, right, checking in, did you manage to do it today? Yes or no? I'm going to reply, because
I wouldn't ghost you. I would reply.
Yeah, because we've made a commitment to one another to show up for each other. Social relationship as well. Exactly, each day. And so that is, in my opinion, that has been the missing gap, the missing piece of the puzzle in preventative health. And I think that is what the future is going to look like. Not AI, humans supported by AI and tech, underpinning them being able to connect with people at scale while still keeping that kind of one-to-one feeling of someone showing up for you.
I think I read something that you said about modern day products and apps. They are designed to hijack the brain's reward circuits. What is the idea behind this, please? Could you explain this to us?
Well, a lot of tech wants to keep you on the tech.
Yes.
So there is even with ChatGPT now, if you look at I can't remember the numbers, but a very, very, very high percentage of searches that ChatGPT is being asked is for help with health.
Yeah.
So asking about health. Now, if you've used ChatGPT, you'll see, or any of them, any of the large language models are the same. It'll give you an answer, and then at the end of the answer, it'll say, would you like me to look at these questions?
Or do this or that for you, follow up kind of thing.
Because it's trying to keep you engaged and keep you on there, to keep using the platform. And people are searching for help with their health. And that's why we've, the rise of health influencers and the absolute flood of content of health online is that people are searching for it because they don't want, most people don't want to be unhealthy and have a hideous health future, but they can't do it. And so they're looking for help. But the tech approach of trying to keep you on there and the digital nudges just aren't the answer.
Yeah, and we do fall into habits that would give us instant gratification ahead of dopamine kind of thing, even if they harm us long term. People do the smoking, people do the all night scrolling kind of thing. How can understanding my brain's reward system help me wriggle out of this vicious cycle of short-term gratification, long-term harm? Do we need to be neuroscientists or study the brain?
Definitely not, because deep down, we all know the things in modern life that are good for us and that are not good for us. So we know this. And I think there is a wake-up happening, a wake-up call, where people realise they're being played.
Yes.
And even in the health and wellness space. So the constant, colossal tidal wave of content that keeps coming over and over and over and over again is because even the people who started off with good intentions online are now feeding their algorithm because they want more followers, they need more followers. It's a business model now, and so that business model has to be maintained. So, how many videos do we need? And I know this is really hypocritical because we are here creating health content.
But you're a doctor, you're a neuroscientist with a medical degree, so you're in a place of authority to say one thing or two.
The landscape now is sort of littered with health influencers and content, and people feeding the content algorithm to build numbers, to build followers, to build advertising revenue, to build a business model around what they're developing. And I think it's important. There is a wake-up call that people are realizing that they're being played, and actually it's some of the content is deliberately clickbaity to pull you into it. And
how do I filter out, as a consumer or a patient, how do I filter out this huge content? Like if I seek medical advice or health advice, for example, I know that the NHS website can be outdated, for example. Mm-hmm. Okay, how do I filter out this? How do I recognize the good from the bad?
Again, ironic that we are on a podcast creating content about health, but when people ask me for the top tips for health, I say, stop reading books about health, stop listening to podcasts about health, stop immersing yourself in that tsunami of noise, because you know what to do. Go to bed earlier, drink water, eat proper food, be social, be active. Yeah. And everyone knows that. So the top tip is just try and focus on a habit and address it, and find a human to do it with.
Hi, I'm Hala, your host today. If you're enjoying what you see, please hit that lovely subscribe button. It will mean a lot to us. Or maybe a small podcast now, but with your support, we can build this channel together, one step at a time. Thank you so much for being part of it. But are there ways to use this exact, easily misled reward system to my advantage while I'm developing good habits on the side?
Well, success breeds success, and you know, when you're triggering that reward circuit, it is motivating. You know, that's what it's designed for. It's designed to trigger repeat behavior. So and the problem is that people often pick the wrong habit to start attacking. So if you want to hack into that kind of reward circuitry, then it's much more beneficial to pick an easy habit and nail it.
So if I struggle with stress, with sleep patterns, smoking, for example, is there a right way of doing this? So which part do I start with? Or maybe attack them all at the same time?
Definitely not attack them all.
Okay.
So this is what I always say to people: line up the habits that you think you need to change. Now order them in their difficulty level. So what's the hardest? What is the absolute simplest one? Start with the simplest one. Even if it's not the priority one, doesn't matter. Start with the simplest one, because success is highly motivating. And once you get into the habit of forming habits and get understanding the process of, right, I'm going to focus on that one. And it might just be, drinking more water, right? So that's relatively easy for me to do because there's access to water everywhere. And so I'll start with that one and just go after that one every day, right? Have I done it today? Have I done it today? And then when you've ticked off that one, pick another one in that list. Don't, because people often pick the hardest one because that is the priority one. It's the most devastating one. So they're going to go, right, I'm going to do that. Well, then they don't manage to succeed and fizzle out.
Yeah, that's New Year's resolutions.
And then there's no health outcome to it. So acknowledge that this process is very difficult in the brain. It's a biological process of molecules moving around to wire brain cells together. You cannot rush it. You cannot sidestep it. There is no other way of forming habits other than that biological process. So starting with a simpler one, and yes, having a list of, okay, I need to do this, 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 and this. But we'll start with that one. Right now, that is my normal routine. I always have some water with me on the go, and I when I go into a meeting, the first thing I do is go to the water, pour myself a glass of water, and form that habit, and then move on to the next one, and then the next, and then the next. Because if we go back to the tennis thing again, you don't start at Wimbledon.
No,
you start with a little tiny bat and a foam ball and hitting it against the wall. Start with the simplest things and then build on the foundation of that.
Oh, and is that how I would reward my reward system?
Well, the reward system is activated when we're successfully doing something, and the pleasure of that. Wow. So when we were talking about the daily check-ins with, find a human accountability partner, check in. When you're able to check in with them and go, yes, I've done it today. That is you're activating that system through that.
Now.
Yeah, that is that's what that system is designed to give, that pleasure response through behavior that is intended to be repeated.
Yes.
It's just that things like chocolate, nicotine, alcohol, other things that unfortunately aren't good for us also trigger that same response, which can then, go down very different pathways of.
Yeah. So the changes that happen in my brain while I'm forming good new habits, is that what you call neuroplasticity?
Exactly that, yes.
Explain that concept to us, please.
So if you, this mug a mug, if you're listening audio and can't see what I'm talking about, a mug, you'll be able to picture it in your mind. A mug is made, and that is the shape and its form for its existence. The brain is constantly changing. So every molecule that we put in our mouth, the molecules that are going up our nose, the environment that we're in, what we're seeing, what we're experiencing, the bacteria that we're exposed to, the thoughts that we have, the films that we watch, everything, that the brain is constantly molding into a different connections here, different connections there. There's constant change. And so it's a very plastic, it has that plasticity effect of being able to change. It's not one, back in the day, it was like, the brain, it changes through childhood and then that's the way the brain is. Well, that isn't the way the brain is. It's constantly changing right the way through to the end of our life.
Till the end of life. Wow, okay. For many of us, health is something that we will get to later in life. I used to think my brain is my brain. There's nothing I can do about that. But you're telling us now that I can wire or change the identity of my brain.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's something called cognitive reserve, which is the sort of the amount of synaptic connectivity that you've got. So how your brain cells are connected, and it's healthy to have lots and lots and lots of connections, and lots of active brain cells and lots of connections.
How do we do that? Through learning?
So learning, new activity, complex activities. And I often use the London tube map to explain it. If you want to go from St. Paul's to Marble Arch, then the central line, the red line, is the most direct route. But if the central line isn't running because there's a signal failure or something, and that line is not functional, then there are other ways for me to get from St. Paul's to Marble Arch. I could go to that stop and I could change onto the northern line and I could go down to somewhere. There are other ways of doing it. And if you are learning lots of new complex things throughout life, which we tend not to do because we do all our learning in youth and then sort of repeat our routines for the rest of our lives. But learning instruments, for instance, or new languages, very complex for the brain. You're building new connections, and having lots of connections is increasing your cognitive reserve, which means if some of those synapses get damaged as we get older and they stop functioning, it's not the end of the world. If that brain cell can go, oh, well, the way I used to connect through this junction no longer works, but it doesn't matter because I've got all of these other junctions that I can just send the signal around there instead. And so it becomes even more important as we get older to keep exposing ourselves to new learning experiences and very a lot of social experiences, because social interaction is also very, very complex. You're reading someone's expression, you're responding to them, you're listening, you're timing how you're conversing. It's a complex pursuit of meeting lots of new people. So learning musical instruments, being social, learning language is a health hack. It's alongside all of the other important things, such as nutrition, good sleep, activity, being social. We are genetically programmed to be in groups of people because that's how we survived, was being social in groups of people, which is why the rise of loneliness is such a huge concern and a major problem, because we now find ourselves being isolated, not even just in later life, but the way the workplace has evolved now to remote working and hybrid working, and that there's a lot more social interaction happening within the workplace for the younger generations as well, which is a problem.
Yeah, it's so refreshing to hear that, okay, I'm not stuck in the brain that I have right now. Well, I read about neuroplasticity and I think, gosh, it might be possible, but how is it really easy or difficult to create a new identity for the brain, for these synapses to click or fire? How difficult or easy is it if I want to create a brand new habit, learn a new language? Can you assess this?
It's not the difficulty as in the complexity of forming a new habit. It's the difficulty in terms of the effort of it because of the time frame of it. You know,
because it takes a long time.
Yeah, we'd all love to be able to speak French in a week. And you're more likely to do that if you are surrounding yourselves with other people who either can already speak French or who are learning French. And the more frequently you expose yourself to the new behavior that you're trying to do. So if it's learning guitar, if you do a couple of minutes every single day of learning guitar, so that you're activating all of those neurons that have to be connected in that way to form that movement and the shape of the chords and everything. If you're doing high frequency repetition, so daily repetition, you're going to progress at a steadier rate than if you have a lesson every Wednesday, but you don't practice in between. And you know, because you have, it's the frequency over a long period that is sending an electrochemical pulse through those neurons that make them better and better and more efficient and more connected until they reach a point where it's there. You know, that network is there, and it will remain there even when you deactivate a habit. So you're never changing that neural network necessarily. You're just sort of not using it. So forming another habit will be a whole other neural network, and you just sort of switch the light off on the old habit. So the light is still there, the light bulb is still there, that circuit is still there, but you're not switching it on because you're choosing to not switch that light on because you've formed the alternative habit over here, and you're choosing to switch that light on.
So is there a moment when the brain tips and the effort feels all of a sudden easier?
So there is, I mean, it's if you look at the neurobiology of long-term potentiation, it is, as you can imagine, incredibly complex. The way I simplify it with, you know, a molecule going from the center of the body to the membrane is an incredibly simplified version of what is actually happening, because there are lots of molecules happening, lots of molecules being moved around, lots of different points on the dendritic, within the dendritic field that are activated to create that long-term potentiation effect, to connect the brain cells together. And there is a point of stabilization where long-term depression, which is the opposite effect, so when the molecules are recycled back into there is a point where that becomes stabilized, so the habit then continues to exist as the automated habit. And at that point, there is a lot less activity in the prefrontal cortex, because you don't have to think about it. You know, when we're driving and you drive home and you don't even think about it, do you? It's like, oh, we've gone through those traffic lights already. Hopefully they were on green.
Yes.
But you've just gone past that, you know, because you no longer have to put your executive network circuit in the brain into action, so that the prefrontal cortex is really, you know, at a conscious level driving it, because it's now a default behavior that the brain just goes, oh, we're driving home. Select all of the neurons that are activated at the right time to get you to the destination, because it's repeated it to such a point that circuit is then stabilized.
Yeah. I read somewhere that our brains automate repeated habits to preserve energy.
Yeah, so that the brain uses a ton of glucose. It's a very gas guzzling, you know, as in calorie guzzling machine. So from an evolutionary perspective, it makes a lot of sense to not have to put such conscious effort and not having to activate in such a high energy way each behavior, if it's a behavior that is going to be repeatedly required it makes a lot of sense to say, oh, right, we can create that as a pattern and save that pattern. Like when you create a template for, social media or something like that. Not that I'm absolutely useless on social media. I am officially gold medal for being rubbish at social media because it just doesn't.
You're doing well.
It doesn't interest me. I just don't post or create. But I believe that people who do, they create templates for certain types of posts, and then they reuse those templates and put different content in it, things like that. And that's the sort of pattern. The efficiency part of the brain is that if there's something that's going to be used repeatedly, it's like, oh, this circuit of neurons is being used repeatedly for this behavior, so we'll save it as this pattern, this template, and then we can just activate the template instead of having to consciously really focus on activating everything, which is a lot of energy when back in the day, in our evolutionary past, when calories were scarce.
That's very clever of the brain. Now, I've just come to a realization when you were talking the other day. Maybe this is too much information, but the other day, I lift weight every day in the morning before my child wakes up. If I'm sore, I just do Pilates, but it's like beautiful and really nice habit now. I used to really struggle to do anything, but now I do. The other day, I woke up discovering I've just had my period. I didn't think much. I was feeling already a bit uncomfortable and a little bit achy, but I didn't think. I just put protection and went on to lift weight. Then I had my shower and had my breakfast, and I did a breakfast for Olivia and all this. And I'm thinking, what the hell was that? You just had your period and you're lifting weight. A little bit of like care, and you needed a bit of rest. Now hearing you, that's exactly what happened. My brain did what I was used to do every day. That's a practice. I wasn't even in the mood of, yes, let's do this. It doesn't matter whether I just had my period. No, it was totally automated. Yeah. Which, it's a beautiful thing. Maybe I should have opted for a bit of rest, but it didn't do me any harm that I lifted weight. It's just...
And I think that if you're in that routine, I think sometimes we overthink things when, we mustn't do this, that and the other. It's like, well, we were carrying water every day. There wouldn't be days where, oh no, we can't carry the children today because it's this date in the month, and so we'll have to. The child will have to walk today because we can't carry them. And I think with weight, we'll come back to the weight training thing, because there is that was one of the most interesting outcomes of my N of 1 experiment when I cancelled my gym membership. Sometimes we overthink things and overcomplicate things. So in my early sport and exercise science days and in the fitness sector, it's suddenly we were creating these protocols that were very specific. So whatever you do, make sure that you stretch your hamstring with this precise technique of stretching your hamstring. And when you're doing your lunge, do not let your knee go past this angle of whatever. It's like,
I hear that all the time.
Seriously. And now, when you think that we just used to be going around all over the place, like, we've got to get up that hill now, right? We'll just go up the hill, and then oh my God, there's a stampede of elephants. We don't have to stop. Right, wait, stop everyone. We have to stretch because we might pull a muscle when we're sprinting away from this herd of elephants. It's just like we kind of it became theatre, kind of like theatre production, and then
too orchestrated, maybe.
Yeah, we're doing the same with health and wellness. I'm seeing it. I'm sitting back and watching it happen, and I documented my research journey in some books because it was the pandemic. I had loads of time. I was doing a lot of research, so I was writing it up anyway. So it just ended up being books that I self-published, and then they got quite a lot of media attention. Then suddenly I was in media attention, and then suddenly I was like, oh my God, I'm becoming a part of this like thing. And in reality, what I think people should be doing is just go for a walk, have an early night, go and see your friends, eat the right food, have as little stress in your life as you possibly can, get daylight. And we've overcomplicated everything. But going back to your point about lifting weights, so I cancelled my gym membership 1st of January 2020. tried to do everything within my daily routine. So bought the weights.
How much do you lift?
And well, so I started brilliantly, and then just couldn't. Then they were at the office. Then I moved office, and so they had to move. Then they wouldn't fit in the next office. There was nowhere to do it. And then they were outside in my garden, but then they were getting rusty. And then it was just like I just couldn't form that habit. It was the only one that I just could not form without a gym membership, right? Without a place to go and to lift weights. I just couldn't do it within my routine. And over that period, I went from high normal muscle mass to I'm now low normal muscle mass, back in the gym, building it back up again.
How would you know? Do you do the scale for the muscle?
Yeah, so we did a reading, and I could see it as well. You know, it was obvious. I went from very high muscle definition to jellyfish.
You look good to me.
Jellyfish.
You look lovely to me. Trust me.
It was very evident that everything that used to be hard was now very soft, and so that aspect is why. Because the reason that I cancelled my gym membership is that I could see that the model wasn't working. So the model of sign someone up for a gym membership and then give them a program and then say, right, go for it. Most people won't be able to form that habit, which is why I'm back in the gym, but I'm now also working with the fitness industry to get the fitness industry to update the model so that within their model, they do these daily check-ins to try and help people form the habits, because just giving them amazing facilities doesn't connect the brain cells together. You know, getting in a busy, hectic life, getting yourself to a location to do an exercise takes a lot of effort. It's a lot of time. Time is money. We're all time poor.
Yes.
So, but that was the only one that I couldn't, and obviously that's one of the most important ones, right? It's trying to cling on to your muscle mass as you age. So